Well, and they had
Sorry about it.
so they had this thing on their website that basically predicted population levels in virtually every country in the world in 2025. Now, this is no longer on their site. They took it off, and you can find it in the Internet Archive, and I'll try and include a link to it in the description to this video as well. But that's the part that kind of stuck out most to you and that you were addressing in the article in International Man.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. They list all the countries of the world and give their current population and current GDP, and then what they project as population and GDP in 2025. And this just isn't the usual draw a straight ruler from, you know, 2% compounded or something. They project that the US population falls 50%, 70%, huge number like that.
Hey YouTube world, Harvard is plenty. Thanks for stopping by. Please don't forget to hit that like button for me. So listen, what I'm about to present to you guys today may sound fake, like a conspiracy theory, or as if it came out of a sci-fi movie. But let me assure you, the company is real, the forecast is real. Will it come to pass? I don't know. I'm not God, so I can't predict the future or see into the future to tell you what exactly is going to happen 100% for sure. But let me tell you what's going on and what I'm getting ready to share with you guys. We're going to be talking about Deagel. Deagel is a company that's tied into military intelligence that does forecasting. They've been doing forecasting, I believe, since the early 2000s. I didn't hear about them until 2020 during the pandemic when it came across my purview. Someone was like, hey man, take a look at this. I took a look at it in 2020, and it was a forecast that the population in the West, particularly America, would drop by almost 70% by year 2025. And I was like, whoa, is this really true? So I was doing a lot of digging or whatever, and I ended up hitting a brick wall. But a lot of people were talking about it, and Deagel never really said why they predicted that the population in America would drop by 70% by the year 2025. Of course, a year later, in 2021 and 2022, they started rolling out that stuff and forcing people to take it unless you would lose your job or you couldn't travel to other countries. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I was like, maybe that have something to do with it, or maybe not. I don't know. But let me just read a little bit about this, and I will leave you with the interview by Doug Casey. He's a wealthy international businessman. Now, on the interview by Doug Casey, there's going to be some cutting in and out. I can't control that, so just listen to it as best as you can. But let me read a little bit about this Deagel thing real quick for you. So it says, according to their own website, Deagel.com provides news and intelligence on international military aviation and advanced technologies. Their website has articles dating back to 2003, but little is known about the real owners. Many online researchers have erroneously confused the site with Deagel.com, which is owned by Edwin Deagel. So there's a little information there. It then goes on to say the majority of the economic and demographic data used in the making of the forecast is widely available by institutions such as the CIA, IMF, the UN, the USG, etc. You can see that the most relevant data at every single country's page. There's a tiny part of data coming from a variety of shadow sources such as internet gurus, unsigned reports, and others. So no one really knows who controls the Deagel site, how the information gets there, and who really uses it, who compiles it. It's one big mystery. But it popped up around 2003, and it had been forecasted for quite some time. Now, the forecast for 2025 first appeared around 2014, and it kind of took off around the pandemic. That's when I heard about it. And it was saying, it was linking the population decline to the pandemic. And Deagel quietly took the page down in 2021 with no fanfare. And just so you guys can see, here's a copy of it. Someone copied it in the Internet Archives in 2020. And it has GDP, it has military expenditures, and it has PPP, which is a power purchase parity in US dollars. And it has all these countries, and it has the United States, and I'm going to blow it up for you right here. It's the United States. And it has the United States, and it has the US population in 2020. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me blow it up a little bit more. It has the United States population in 2020 around 326 million people. And it says around 2025, the population will be around 99 million people. So that's almost a 70% decline. So what will cause that many people to vanish in America by 2025? I don't know. And Deagel was very quiet about that. One of the things that they did say, and I'll read it for you guys, it said that it was going to be a crash of the financial markets, and that will cause people to leave, which is very interesting. And so here's their reasoning. They say the collapse of the Western financial system will wipe out the standard of living of its population while ending Ponzi schemes such as the stock exchange and the pension funds. The population will be hit so badly by a full array of bubbles and Ponzi schemes that the migration engine will start to work in reverse, accelerating itself due to ripple effects, thus leading to the demise of the states. We see a significant part of the American population migrating to Latin America and Asia, while migration to Europe, suffering a similar illness, won't be that relevant. So does the collapse of the stock market causes that many people to migrate out of the United States? I don't know. I've also read other things talking about a possible biological attack, which coincides with the previous two videos that I put up about culling the herd or culling the population and the biological attack. So I don't know, guys. It's very interesting. I know these Luciferians, they have a lot of wicked plans in place, but God is in ultimate control, and he's going to stop and thwart them at every possible step. He will not allow them to rush prophecy, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do a self-fulfilling prophecy and kick things get things started. I'm sorry. They're trying to get things started before the appointed time, and God would not allow that to happen. So I'm going to leave you guys with the Doug Casey interview. Again, enjoy the interview. Some points of the interview, it cuts in, cuts out, but take a listen to it and see what you can glean from it. All right, until my next video, love you guys. Please stay safe out there. May the Lord continue to bless you and your family.
All right. Good morning, Doug. Today, I want to talk about an article that you just published today in the International Man, which I'll include in the links below. Everyone, if you're not a subscriber to International Man, you definitely should be. There's lots of great content there, not only stuff that Doug writes, but other great writers as well. So, but you covered a topic that I've heard rumors about for months. First, I heard about it from some of our viewers, actually, and that's about this site called Deagel.com and their forecast for population changes, massive population changes in 2025. And first of all, how did it get on your radar? How did this even topic get on your radar?
Yeah, I can't remember who it was that introduced me to this Deagel website. I'd never heard of Deagel before, but I did go on their website, and they're basically what they do is they track the economies of different countries in the world, about 200, most of them actually, almost all of them, but mainly their military capabilities. So they're in some ways competitive with Jane's, which has been around for decades and is the well-known company when it comes to tracking military weapons systems, what they can accomplish, how much they cost, all this type of thing. So it's, I guess Deagel's kind of a big deal, but it's not well promoted or well known like Jane's is. Can't remember.
Well, they had this thing on their website that basically predicted population levels in virtually every country in the world in 2025. Now, this is no longer on their site. They took it off, and you can find it in the Internet Archive, and I'll try and include a link to it in the description to this video as well. But that's the part that kind of stuck out most to you and that you were addressing in the article in International Man.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. They list all the countries of the world and give their current population and current GDP, and then what they project as population and GDP in 2025. And this just isn't the usual draw a straight ruler from, 2% compounded or something. They project that the US population falls 50%, 70%, huge number like that. Same with Western Europe, same with Canada, and I think the same with Australia and New Zealand. I can't recall, I'm not looking at it now. But interestingly, it's only the Western world that suffers this huge population drop. All of the countries of the world, if you look at them on this, they all suffer significant population drops, but generally in the 5 to 10 to 15% area, not 50 to 70%, the way North America and Europe will. So their explanation as to why this may be, at least what they published on the site, was kind of general. There's a reference to, well, I imputed, they're looking at a biological war, which would obviously be the best way to take out huge numbers of people, but also there's a reference to a possible famine evidencing itself in the world.
Well, because we're talking about a decline in the U.S. of something like,
but not a conventional war.
I mean, the decline in the U.S. is something like a reduction of for 70% of the population. That'd be, like 200 million people, right? Something like that. I mean, it's a massive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is catastrophic. It would be the biggest thing in world history because it's not just North America. It's going to be Europe too. And but they don't have any explanation. It would have been nice if they had an essay explaining, well, exactly how do you come up with these figures? Based on what? I mean, when I first saw this thing, I thought, well, this must be some type of a spoof or some type of a trolling exercise, because for an outfit that's moving in the circles that Deagel, whoever's in back of it, that's indeterminate. It's hard to tell. It's a spook organization. This is not going to like get them all kinds of new business or something like that. That would make no sense from a business point of view. And I haven't seen any comments on this in any of the conventional media at all, or for that matter, even in the alternative media, because nobody knows anything about Deagel. I wonder if Jane's had published this, if there would be massive comments from one place or another. Just don't know.
Were you able, and so you spent a lot of time researching this, trying to understand, really what they were trying to say, what it would take in order to even achieve these population changes, and what were you, I guess, when you kind of dug into it, what did you come up with? Like, how is it even possible that those population changes could occur?
Well, the only thing that makes sense to me is some type of a biological war. And of course, I've said on this podcast and elsewhere in articles I've written in internationalman.com as well, that it seems to me that the US and China are slated for a real war. Not just a little sport war kind that we had with places like Grenada, or for that matter, Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq. Those are kind of sport wars where we're acting as a bully, but China would be hunting big game. What would it look like, and how would it start? Well, since the Chinese have been of late saying things and appearing to make preparations to take over Taiwan, and the US is pledged to defend Taiwan, maybe that'll start it. And that doesn't have to turn into World War III, even if the Chinese sink a couple of aircraft carriers. That would not necessarily start World War III. I mean, if we sank enough Chinese boats and so forth, maybe they just decide, let's call this off before it gets out of control. But on the other hand, it could thoroughly spin out of control. A nuclear war, Chinese are going to want to stay away from that because they'd lose at this point.
Well, and
nobody wins a nuclear war, obviously.
And there's the predicted population declines for China are not like at all what we have. So it's like if there were a nuclear war, you would have to assume that we would be able to deliver some serious punishment on their side too.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a believer that in addition to the computer/cyber element of World War III, which will be huge, obviously, you just shut down the country's infrastructure because everything runs on computers these days. In addition to the space war element of this, because everything's done by satellites these days, and who knows what type of weapons have already been mounted on the high frontier to attack enemy bases. And of course, you've got a nuclear war and a conventional war. But the thing that nobody's talking about is biological war, which coincides kind of oddly with this COVID hysteria. And there are so many advantages looking at it from a Dr. Strangelove point of view, the point of view of a marginally psychotic political leader or general, to biological war, especially when we're talking about China, because of course the Chinese, the Han Chinese, which are the vast majority of the population there, share lots of genetic characteristics. So it would be, easy, I would think, for people that know about these things to find the common denominator that makes Chinese people look like Chinese people. And it's not just skin color or epicanthic fold around the eyes and things like that. Perhaps a bacteria that would insulate them and take out people that don't have those Chinese genes. It makes a lot of sense. And of course, from the looking at society, that'd be a little bit tougher, but you can breed a biological weapon directed at the Chinese, as opposed to a Chinese breeding one that they're insulated from. And of course, if you're going to launch a bio war, you can buy inoculation, protect your people, but the enemy is not inoculated. So that's another way of playing the game. Another advantage to a biological war is that you don't need all these high-priced delivery systems. Like if you start a nuclear war, people are going to know exactly where those missiles are coming from. But if it's a biological war, it could be a tourist, or it could be something in the mail, so that that you have plausible deniability, so that maybe you won't be counterattacked or counterattacked in time because you're just not sure who did it, quite frankly. And has access to a high school level chemistry lab and a CRISPR machine can alter DNA and genomes And who knows what could be done at this point, because listen, all we really know about it, unless we're experts in the field, is what filters down through the mainstream press. We about it don't know what they're talking about anyway. So yeah, biological war is the way it's, and of course, a big advantage with bio-war is that all the materiel remains. It just takes out the so-called bad guys, whoever the bad guys are, depends on which side you're on. So, you know, you're not dealing with a smoking ruin, but, you know, all the good stuff that you want is still there. So I don't think there's any doubt we're going to have a biological war when we have World War III. But anybody could start World War III. Like I said, anybody with some expertise and a chemistry lab could do it too. So this is the big thing that nobody talks about. And the interesting thing is this Deagel website, it doesn't put its finger on biological war exactly, but definitely puts that across as a possibility. So I think that's it in a nutshell, Matt.
Doesn't it's they say some things. They have this lengthy disclaimer at the bottom of their tables of population changes, and they say things like the Western world success model has been built over societies with no resilience that can barely withstand any hardship, even a low density intensity one. It was assumed, but we got the full confirmation beyond a doubt with COVID. And I don't know. I mean, it just seems the whole thing to me, and I think people should read the entire disclaimer that they have, because they're just basically they basically say the things that we've been talking about here for the last 114 episodes of this, that the U.S. is not in a great position to be able to withstand any difficulty. They talk about the financial situation. They talk about the dollar hegemony, but still the predictions are so utterly shocking that my worry when I saw this, a viewer actually brought this to my attention maybe 6 months ago. And I saw it and I go, holy crap, that's crazy. And then I just tried to dig around and find information on these guys. And that's where I ran into trouble. And so, the question is like, how seriously should we take any of these things that are coming out of this website?
Well, when I lived in Washington, D.C. Many years ago, one way or another, I had lots of contacts in the spook and military communities. And if this was then, I could make a number of phone calls and maybe get the inside skinny. But the guys that I knew in those days they've all joined the ranks of the departed one way or another, so that I don't really have any connections there anymore. I think one guy still working for the Rand Corporation. I'll try to reach out to him and ask him, because of course Rand Corporations, that's really the biggest thing in the whole area. I'd like to get to the bottom of this, because it's so outrageous what these people have published, but outrageous, but also credible. And the fact is that the whole world now actually is highly urbanized. And the problem, there are many advantages to being urbanized. That's why we have the high standard of living that we do. But at the same time, if things are urbanized, it's all about supply chains. How long would you be able to survive in New York City if the trucks stopped running for like 2 or 3 days?
Yep.
There'd be no food, quite frankly. Yep. And then what happens? Okay. And that's true of every big city. And it really doesn't matter whether you're an office worker who's got no skills except for shuffling paper, or a ghetto rat who's got no skills except gangbanging or dealing drugs or whatever. All these people wouldn't be able to feed themselves, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. So, a highly complex civilization is one that is I think it was Nassim Taleb that went into this about they're not by nature anti-fragile. They're fragile. Yeah, it's all of the food in the US is either produced by the 2 or 3% of our population that works on farms. But these are gigantic monoculture farms, generally speaking.
So
Is it possible
even they
that a
can't.
virus or a vaccine could?
Sorry, I was just gonna say even those farmers can't survive without the complex system because they require fertilizers and even food, their own food, like because they're just producing soybeans or corn or something like that themselves. Like they aren't actually producing the components that one would require to actually live. It requires, you know, this complex economy in order for anybody to get the finished goods that we need for our basic survival.
Yes, and they need diesel fuel and gasoline to do any of this. I mean, even more basic. So there's all kinds of ways that the agricultural production line could be shut down. In addition, of course, the rest of the food is imported from abroad. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong in a very complex society that's fragile. And it's especially fragile because of the influence of government, all kinds of stupid distortions that they've cranked into to the system. So maybe it would be mass starvation from, I mean, they're never really clear why this could happen.
Yeah, they're never clear. So we gotta. So yeah, I'll let me just explain real quickly that I do have one friend who is a former CIA who, you know, was really connected to one of the most powerful people in intelligence services for a long time, and was probably more powerful after he left them actually. And I just asked him about it. And so when I told him the website name, I just said, do you know anything about these guys? Who's behind it? I mean, are they credible at all? What information can you give me? His immediate response to it was, well, I have a classmate, or a friend of mine was a West Point classmate with Edwin Deagel, but he died in February, but his assumption was that this Edwin Deagel, that this was his, because Edwin Deagel was basically had worked, you know, to keep track of this stuff while he was in, I believe, in the Air Force, and then he later worked for, you know, was associated with the Rockefeller Foundation. But I don't know for sure if that's the same guy because the last name is spelled differently, just a bit. It's the E and the L and the end are reversed. But it's interesting that when I brought it up to him, this guy who, you know, was in the CIA for a long time, West Point grad, like, you know, that immediately he came up with Edwin Deagel. So I don't know if that's really it or not. I asked him to ask around. He has a lot of feelers out trying to get more information about it. He's hearing different things from different people, but I think it's worth. I'm going to keep poking myself to just see what I can find out about it, because it's the source is the question. Because if the source really is credible, was really utilized by the powers that be, then I think it's really, really important information. So, and I think it's worth reaching out to your friend at the Rand Corporation just to see if they would just dismiss it out of hand, or if they think there might be something to whoever's behind it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's especially in these strange times that we're living in, it's kind of wild and crazy, quite frankly, to see this.
Well, it's certainly the most outrageous prediction I've seen. You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just saying it's certainly the most extreme prediction I've seen about our near future.
God forbid some newsletter copywriter sees this and decides it's a fantastic way to incite the mob to send in money to find out more.
Oh God! Now that you said it, you know it's going to happen. You know it's going to.
I know, because one of the strange things about life is that anything that can happen eventually will happen. It's just the law of large numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that can be imagined can be done. And anything that can be done will be done. I mean, show me an example where that's not true.
Yeah. I don't have one. Well, let's, I'm on your end. I think it's worth both of us continuing to investigate this further. And if we get new information, then we, update our viewers on what we find out. And for our viewers out there, if you have any information on, this site, who's behind it specifically, and, how credible it all is, we'd love to hear whatever you've got to say about it. So, you can communicate with us in the Telegram group, or reach out to us via email. There's the email in the channel description as well. But this is a very, very interesting thing, and it could all be nonsense. But the fact that they've got such accurate information on global armaments really makes you think that there's something. It's not just it's not just some trick that somebody's running on all of us.
And maybe the people that have been producing all the zombie movies and zombie series, maybe they have an inside track, and we weren't taking them seriously all this time.
Exactly. So let us know what you know.
Yeah, I love it when the people involved in this have a sense of humor. Black, but still a sense of humor.
Yeah. Dark humor still can be funny until you actually start seeing a zombie apocalypse take place around you. Then you start to a little less funny. But yeah. So viewers, let us know, please, if you have any information on this, and Doug and I will keep investigating. Among the friends that we have that might have some information on it, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much, Doug, and we'll leave it at that, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks, Matt. Hasta mañana.